morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Friday, December 14th, 10 o'clock agenda meeting. I'd like to get Mr. Gerald Fark to say the pledge, Mr. Terry Beard to say the prayer. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
all right, we'll move on into number 3, administrative report. Mr. Booyah.
Good morning, gentlemen. Merry Christmas and many, many more. First off, it's been a couple months since I really provided a good update on venture status. I went back and looked through my notes, and I think September was the last time we had a real detailed report. So a few things have happened with the project in recent weeks. One of them being on December 7th, Venture announced the execution of their agreement between their company and Kiewit to serve as the engineering, procurement, and construction contractor, the EPC, for the project. Offtake agreements have still been in place, and those are existing. Again, 20-year contracts, Shell, BP, Edison, Repsol, and PG&IG. This agreement with Kiewit was prefaced by a bridge loan for the facility of $220 million. And we are told that those funds are in hand, and that will allow for some expedited and immediate mobilization and preliminary construction work at the site upon receiving their certificate from FERC. This morning, as I do every morning, I refreshed the FERC page on Venture Global, and I'm very pleased to tell you that it looks like at the December 20th commission meeting, which has been public notice today, Venture's application is on that agenda. December 20th at 10 o'clock Eastern time. That meeting will be broadcast live, I believe, via the internet. And again, I need to clarify what exactly is going to be approved or not. But it has been publicly noticed a week ahead of time, and that meeting will be next Thursday. Fingers crossed, early Christmas present maybe coming to the parish. We had some progress that was made on the Quipper project at Rockefeller. You may recall that there was a $10 million budget surplus that was floating out there for some time. We received word near the end of Thanksgiving that the Quipper Task Force and the CPRA jointly agreed to a change order which extended the existing project another 6,000 linear feet at no cost to the locals at all, 100% federally funded. That is really good news for us. That extra mile and a tenth, mile and a quarter is going to be pretty helpful. Every little bit helps. And so that was, in my opinion, really good news. However, with every bit of good news comes some bad news. The extension of that original project has basically shifted the point of termination of that funding source. You know, we have another $12 million to go out there that the jury was awarded through CDBG, which we were approved on Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yes.
Tuesday, for the $4 million extension, our $4 million extension. and we have an application approval of 8.6 million from the Restore Act. So we got another 12 million to go with their 29 million. The issue is, we're not able to authorize some preliminary design work until we know where that current project is gonna stop. The tides are a little low now, which is helping some of the marshes drain, but when they're doing the shoreline project, they can't get their equipment out there. They can't maneuver like they need to. And so the contractor has pulled off until after the first of the year, probably late first quarter, March, April-ish, when the weather becomes more favorable. They're gonna go back out there. However, if we can move expeditiously on this, there may be an opportunity to get the materials ordered. They had some problems with the quarry, keeping up with the contractor. The materials are coming from Kentucky. And so if we can, you know, we were on a conference call with the Office of Community Development, Disaster Recovery Unit on Thursday, December 6th. And they had questions about our timeline. We had to push that timeline back for those funds due to the fact that, which was a good problem to have, the project was being extended. So where we initially thought the project was going to stop is not the case now. So now we need to take a little bit more time and make sure that we're in the right spot out there, and we can clearly show where one funding source stopped and the next funding source started. We do have a conference call scheduled with the CPRA Tuesday, December 18th, to discuss this issue further. On your Gomesa project, we did receive the permit, Pencilmaker received the permit for the geotechnical work, and we have executed task orders to begin their design work and preliminary work on the project. So it looks like we are moving along with that. We had a great conference call last week, and just a status update. Everybody's getting engaged, and it looks like from Pencilmaker's perspective, things are going to move along. And last but not least, in my report, I did want to inform the jury that Chairman Johnny Bradbury of the CPRA has resigned effectively January 1st. Mr. Bradbury has taken a position in the private sector, but on behalf of the residents of this parish, we most certainly need to congratulate him and thank him for his service to this state and our parish. Johnny has been engaged with us from day one. He toured the parish immediately. He participated in our coastal days. He has been very supportive of Cameron initiatives. We've enjoyed a great working relationship with him. We're going to miss him, and we are, pleased to see that Chip Klein has been named the interim replacement. Chip worked previously under Jerome Zarang and Garrett Graves, and actually held this position prior to Johnny being appointed. So Chip is well aware of our needs here, so I don't think we're going to have a big gap in a learning curve or anything of the sort. But we do want to thank Mr. Bradbury, Chairman Bradbury, for his open-mindedness and his working so well with Cameron Parish. And with that, we do have some other items that I can get into later down the agenda and in our review agenda. But any other questions?
Yeah, what year are they gonna start on Rutherford Beach this year?
So, right,
Putting rocks.
yes. We still have a requirement to spend 85% of that bonded money within a very short window. So I think the current timeline, Renee, do you know the exact, the projected date of commencement for the construction side? Do you recall?
I do not recall what that is.
I'm pretty sure that it's in early 2020. And of course, there are things that could happen that decrease that time, namely permitting and things of that sort. But we've been very cognizant of the previous design that was done at Rockefeller. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. It was already working. So I think the geotechnicals are gonna determine how quickly we can move. But it looks like early 2020, we should be getting ready to commence construction on the project. So it, as with everything, the regulatory side is gonna take its normal process. But we've been fortunate here lately to get some motivated reviews of permits. For example, what was approved for Gravity 4 on that levee refurbishment, that was encouraging. So I think if we stay engaged in our federal delegation, assists in moving the needle, I think we could probably stay true to that timeline.
Any other questions, Guido? Good? All right, let's move on to number 4, Mr. Mark McComb, Beachfront Development District number 1.
Good morning.
Morning.
This will be a lot briefer than last time. One is the issue and one's an update. So the issue that we're facing is, it'll be the upcoming summer, is litter on Holly Beach. And we've had a lot of input, we've had good turnout at our beach meetings. And that is one issue that continues to arise, is we don't have any way for anyone down there to dispose of trash. I think it would be a good estimate to say we'll have 5,000, 8,000 beach goers there on July 3rd with nowhere to dispose of their trash. Without anywhere to dispose of it, the majority of it will remain on the beach. We have beach residents that have actually brought their own personal trailers out there to use as beach receptacles for the beach goers. They take it upon themselves to bring it to the Johnson Bayou or Holly Beach dump and dispose of it there. It's still going to our dumps. So if you remember a couple of years ago, we mentioned the option of letting beachgoers use the dump. That would not be without some other downsides. Another option is the beach committee placing receptacles there on the beach on weekends, or particularly the weekends in question here, Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, some of the higher traffic days. The downside of that, I'd say, is we don't police those as they do at the dump, and we can end up with some fairly expensive garbage to dispose of. If you have several tons of garbage and 2 batteries, you end up paying the hazardous waste disposal fee. So I just wanted to leave that with y'all to perhaps consider. We haven't posted no littering. We have signs all around the beach. The residents are forced to clean it up themselves at this point. Personal trailers, I really don't think is a good option out there for the residents of the beach to bring their own trailers out and be, forced to either look at the garbage or dispose of it themselves. And the Holly Beach dump really does not have the hours that would make this 100%, but it could make it at least 50% better. So, question for y'all to think over would be, as we put out our new beach handout, which is coming together right now, we're waiting on that to include either verbiage, take out what you bring in, or a dump is available. So that's for y'all's consideration there. The beach dumpster we can also do, and it's probably a good step. My only concern is how many times will we end up paying the hazardous waste disposal fee instead of the low agreed upon rate. Other than that, we did have a handout that should be in your packet. At our last meeting, we had advised that we were considering building a pavilion down at Mays Beach. And at our most recent meeting, we had some other opinions arise. Like I say, good turnout and good input. And this is a proposal It looks good, and it may be better for the parish in general, or beachgoers in general. Mays Beach is remote, you can't see it from Highway 82 passing by. A tourist would not ever be aware it was even in existence. So one of the thoughts is mile marker 20.2 approximately there along Highway 82, to have something with handicap access, and at first, maybe just a platform and a walkover across. It's fairly decent walk to the beach area for a handicapped person, I'd say, but what makes it tricky is the rocks and all the debris on the beach. This would be a way for them to access it, and just something we're considering right now. So this really doesn't take any action on your part. This is just that we're also considering other spots besides Mays Beach for a location. Really, that's all I have today. If y'all would mull over the garbage problem that we have on Holly Beach, and also consider the amount of beachgoers that we have there on certain days. It is, it's increasing, and probably will be more this year than last. So not only is it a enforcement issue for the sheriff's department, it is a big issue for the beach residents and what they're faced to look at the following Monday morning. So, y'all have any reply to that? Okay, well, thank you.
All right, moving to number 5, Cameron Fisheries budget.
We should have you should have a sheet available to you just with the equipment list. Get Miss Jenny up here too. We wanted to discuss the status of the equipment. Formerly, we've had quite a few questions about that pretty much every month. And so we wanted to give an update on the equipment, but Miss Jenny has an update prior to that.
Yeah, I got a call late yesterday. I was still at my office in the evening, and it was the attorney who is now representing Cameron Fisheries. We had a conference call with them a couple weeks ago, and they were still talking about trying to get us to help them find someone to buy them out. And anyway, he wound up telling me that they're ready to walk away from the lease. You know, they want to get released from the lease, and which is important because if we're going to replace them, we have timelines. We have to put out a request for proposals and all this kind of business. So Claire is going to schedule a meeting of the port board to authorize her to, because the lease is with the port, to authorize her to work out the terms of dissolution, which is mainly that we're not paying them any more money. That's the thing. And then we'll get started on the on finding a replacement. So that's why it's important to get all this stuff done, because we're going to be having a new tenant.
We basically had a few items left, and Daryl has the exact number.
No, it's an exact number, but we got 3 major pieces of HVAC systems and pneumatic ice conveyor that we had rejected the bids for previously that need to go out, be rebid, and wastewater treatment. Right now, within the remaining budget from Cameron Fisheries and what I project is the actual budget that we're looking at $65,000 that we'd have to come up with. It could go up higher than that depending on these bids once they go out. So, if they stay within the budget in that bottom box, sheet, if they stay within that, then we're looking at $65,000. That we need to, but if they go over, we need more money. So, that's going to be the question to get y'all authorized to allocate any additional funding needed to complete the Cameron Fisheries equipment project.
The company that had the lease and the contract with this, did we pay these people something, or it was just an agreement?
They got the use of our facility. Okay, because the facility is built with a CDBG grant and it is owned by the port, the police jury, who leased it to the port, and then the port subleased it to these people here to operate. But they just never had much success getting going. So,
What's important is the police jury is the fiscal agent for all of the $5.4 million worth of grant funds. People in Baton Rouge have been very supportive of this project, but they want to see it operable. And so after the conference call, we discussed it, and, you know, there were sections, and we can discuss this further, but I know the jury did pay for the dredging, did pay for the engineering, and other, you know, ancillary costs early on associated with the project. The request would be to cover or allow the general fund to cover excess costs outside of the existing grant funds to get the facility to a point where it is functional.
but those funds were not paid to Cameron Fisheries.
That's right.
They were paid to get the building, the structure of them, or the business of them. So, we haven't been paying them,
Yes.
but we let them use our stuff.
But they never used it,
And now,
other than say they used it, or they,
No, it's just never been operational.
It's not functional, okay.
Mhm.
Darryl, would you say, Ron, would y'all say that we're at 64,000 to possibly complete it, get it up and ready to go?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
if the bids come out.
Being that
along
it's
the
our
budget.
stuff, it's our building, it's our, everything is there. Would you say it'd be safe if the jury, my opinion only, allocate $100,000 and whatever's left underneath that, brings it back to the jury to try to finish this thing up and get it operable, where they can get it under process?
Yeah, the cost limit, if it's $100,000, Mr. Darrell, it just, if the bids come in like that, it could be 100,000, I mean, 65 to 100. I can't say it's not gonna be more than that if the bids come and we have to start
But if
rejecting.
we allocate something just to cover ourselves,
Oh, yeah, I'm
you don't
just,
have to keep coming back.
and that's why I think when Ryan said, kind of like, just to allocate any additional funding needed. And I'm just giving you an estimate, right now, 65.
Two goals.
Then we might need to go up to 150,000.
Well,
just to
I'm
cover
saying, I have to
everything.
exceed that.
Yeah.
That's fine, I mean, I'm just asking a question, because if it.
I don't have to come back and we got some bids come in there, because
This could come down lower too.
it could. We got the bid set up on the
Okay.
air conditioning where we can reject it as something.
I'm good with it, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, to get this thing up and going, and let's get going, and get rid of whatever we gotta do.
And if you recall, there's a clause in there, and we need to talk to Ms. Jenny and the port about it. But being you didn't anticipate having this cost, if there was a way to recoup some of that moving forward through the $24,999 payment, I mean, over, you know, years, I mean, at least the general fund wouldn't be out more than the $250 you've already put up. So I think it's an option, it's still up to you, you know, we can keep, you know, discussing it, but I still think that's an option also.
Do we, Ms. Jones, they said they would do it on the phone, but we're gonna try to get all this in writing?
Well, I believe we're gonna have a meeting, special meeting at the port. We would normally have one, we would normally not have a meeting this month. I think that scheduled meeting is Christmas Day. So we're gonna try to get a meeting set up next week to authorize Claire to do whatever she needs to do to negotiate a termination of the lease. But these people have always thought that they could sell the goodwill of if they sold Cameron Fisheries, the new owner could take over operation, but they don't have nothing to sell. They don't own the building, they don't own the equipment.
That's right.
They have the goodwill of the business, which is
They don't own nothing.
non-existent, you know, so they're not gonna be able to do that. I think they finally come to that realization.
So you'd be safe to say we just move this over to the voting meeting this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
And allocate up to 150,000, or possibly not to exceed 150, then you'd have to come back for some more approval.
Yes, sir.
We don't pay these people nothing to get out of this.
Right, if they set up a meeting, I would be interested in attending that meeting. I'd like to see what kind of contract they would have for a new operator.
Okay.
I don't know if we were too vague in our original one, and give them some deadlines if they have to be operational by a certain time.
It was really a combination of, long time to get the funding approved. It's really not all their fault, you know, but I think the problem was that these people wanted to live up in the northwest, and they weren't here to push their project. And I
That's
think it
another
was
thing,
just,
I'd really like to see a floating entity running that thing.
yeah.
So, I mean, at the meeting, we can discuss it.
While I'm up here, can I talk to y'all about President Bush? Okay, we have a resolution later in the day, it's, on the agenda, to commend President Bush, and, Sonny was around, Darrell was around, but the rest of y'all weren't around when that happened. After Hurricane Rita, President George W. Bush formed this Bush Clinton Katrina Fund, and they raised money all over the world to help the victims of Hurricane Katrina, but there wasn't anything in there for Hurricane Rita. So I called up there, it was in Washington, we said, well, can we be in there too? And they said no. So eventually, we went to, Richard Zeus Lodge brought us to President George H.W. Bush's office in Houston. And Tina and I went and basically begged him for money to help the hospital. And there were people there who wanted help for other places too. And he told them, he said, today ain't your day, today's their day. He said, I'm gonna tell you something that happened 50 years ago. There was this bad hurricane in Cameron, and I was a young fellow. I had oil field interest offshore at that time, because actually I think he's the one who started Zapata, you know, he had that company. And he came to Cameron, and he saw all the destruction there was, and he asked if he could do something to help, because he was a young, able-bodied man. And he said, every able-bodied man goes to the ice house and unloads bodies. He never forgot that. And so he said he wanted to do something for Cameron Parish, and he what he did was, he called Kuwait, the country, who had donated $2 million to the Clinton Katrina Fund, and asked if he could switch that over to South Cameron Hospital, and they said, sure, of course, you know, so that would have never happened without President Bush. And also, you know, it took money from FEMA, it took money from the Louisiana Recovery Authority, it took money from all over the place, but if we missed out on any of that, we would have never opened that hospital. So I think, I said, you know, he's still saving lives today in Cameron. So I think the idea of the resolution is a really good idea.
Anything else? All right, let's move to number 6, amendment to employee classification policy, extending classification step 0 to 25 years.
Currently, Mr. DuPont, the classification step system goes to 20 years, but 3 employees are maxed out. We've been asking y'all to extend it to 25. But it's that same step.
Yeah, anybody got any questions on that? Everybody good with that? All right, you good with that?
Gonna add it to the afternoon.
Okay, good deal. All right then, let's go to number 7, review agendas.
Should we ask the question? Okay, so would the salaries go up too, or just the years? You know how the
Yeah,
salaries.
there'll be a step increase. From 25, there'll be a step increase for 25.
So, but you know how the salaries are capped at 20 years, like, you gotta.
Yeah, we
No,
can cap it
they're
at
capped
25.
So you're gonna extended.
Yeah, that's the point.
So it's
Zero
gonna
to
be
20 is
divided?
not gonna be zero. No, it's gonna, the step increase, whatever is that step for that particular job classification, it's just gonna go for 5 more years.
Extended.
There'll be an increase for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So December's gonna go. That's all. I'm
Yes,
trying
yes,
to-
correct.
Yes, okay.
Commensurate with each year,
Right, okay.
21 through 25.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Good?
That's good.
Miles,
Yes, sir.
the, item F there, number 6F, Cotton Hole Fishing Club, that's up on West Harbor Drive. Is that same big levee coming around, they're gonna clean that up, or whatever they're gonna do and get rid of it? Can we approve this, go ahead and approve it, and then let the drainage board do what they gotta do up there?
Yes, sir. Like I said earlier, y'all part of the committee of the coastal zone management, local coastal zone, and the drainage board is too. So whatever y'all approve today, the drainage board still has time to look at it and approve or have comments or
So they'll
whatever.
have the final decision?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fine with me, thank you, sir.
All right.
What's that gonna do?
That's the levee back there on West Harbor Drive. You know, when you go up in the Abears camps, you get to the hump, goes on that private land back there. They got a levee along the lake, the guy wants to level all that off and clean it up.
Wasn't that a protection levy?
Say again?
Wasn't that a protection levy? Was that a protection levy?
It's on the very north end.
On the north end.
It's the Cameron Creole part of the watershed levee where everybody done built on now, on the north end. Everybody built on it or added dirt to the side and built on part of that protection levee. When it gets to the very north end, it turns back and goes back east.
Right.
It runs right through a person's lot, okay? Then when it gets to the road, after the road, it kind of just dissipates in the marsh. It don't go nowhere from there. He's wanting to clear that levee or just level that levee is what he's asking to do, is level that levee on his lot of property, that piece of property that he owns. Not all the dirt off, it'll be leveled right there.
Was that more or less an access levy for the main levee that was built along the lake? Or-
That was part of the Cameron Creole watershed levee, built in the late eighties, I wanna say, middle eighties.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there an easement for that levee, or do we own that?
I don't have that agreement no more, but I can tell you that everybody that built on the levee is there now on the north end. I doubt there was any agreement signed. It's private property. I don't know what was set up in
There's
that.
no legal implication if they're doing anything on that levee, is what I'm asking. If it's ours, it's an easement, we are responsible in a way. If it's not in an easement, it's not that.
I don't know what part of the Cameron Creole committee or who's over it or Gravity 3 would know here in Cameron, but their line don't go all the way into ours and stop right before it gets there.
Just like chase it, see that.
That's 3 and 4, huh? It's Creole part of the Cameron Creole watershed, Cameron and Creole part.
I can send it to them too if y'all would like.
No, I'm fine with it, I was just trying to understand what they were.
Lee, Mr. Farr, I don't know the agreements that they ever put in with anybody that lives on that levee, on that very north end. Anything south of that, it jumps in the marsh then, but they took and developed all that some years back, way before Rita.
You know, my opinion, they ought to take the levee out all the way back here. Or one piece on. That's just my opinion.
You have to move that.
No, I mean, past the houses, just keep on going and just put it back where.
Easy.
The fish on it, with barns and everybody else.
Easy.
Heard that before?
Which is my opinion.
On the holiday, I'm not a holiday, the meeting schedules. I see we moved from 3 o'clock voter meeting to 2. Why did we move to 2 o'clock?
That's
We
up
already
to
have
y'all.
complaints of people not making it for 3.
We can set that, whatever y'all want, it's just
I'm
to,
just seeing
just to
last question about it.
kind of move it and we can,
I mean, the staff,
we're open to whatever y'all want. That was a offer I think we kind of talked
Out
about.
of here at 3:15 most of the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, the voting meeting's gonna take that long. But, I mean, we can move that, we can set that for 3 or 4, I mean, we just, that 2 was just, you know,
I know.
if we don't have anything in the afternoon, just.
We did it
long
at 5,
afternoon.
but nobody showed up. We moved it to 3, we started hearing complaints, but still, nobody showed up. And I was
So,
wondering,
it's
why
just-
moving it to 2?
Just to let y'all
Get the
get
people
done
license,
and
I guess.
let it go. But it's because of, but it's still about public access to the meetings,
Right.
you know.
The staff doesn't have an issue with that.
No, it doesn't, I mean, if y'all wanted
Doesn't
3,
affect y'all.
this is just a
Well,
a
they fixed the
proposal.
constituents if they wanted to come at 3. That's how-
Absolutely, I mean, if that's, if y'all think that is the better way to proceed, I mean, we're
Well, people wanna come and they got something to say, they can come at 1, 2, no matter what time it's gonna be. If they got an issue, they're gonna be here to come talk to us. I don't think time,
Well, that's what I'm saying, I don't think it ain't broke right now, why we?
then we can leave, we can
That's
leave it
just my
for 3. That's,
Why don't we just set it, the second Monday of the month from now on, 10 and 3? There's all this changing of the days of the month, this month is on the 3rd, and then
well,
that
because
month
some
is
of
on
us
the
ain't
16th.
retired.
I mean, look, that's
That vacation.
No vacation.
it's been a challenge.
That's just a suggestion.
It's been a challenge the last couple of years, on work and all that, but, I mean,
I never get a rise out of that.
this is a proposed schedule, y'all set it as y'all feel it needs, whatever it needs to be. I think these are the dates, though, the best dates, but the time, that's up to y'all.
We have the agenda
It had-
meeting on the 1st and the voting meeting on the 9th. Whatever, with y'all.
Mr. President, I want
If you keep
to
scrolling, scroll.
acknowledge one thing if I can. Item 10, authority to negotiate the engineering services. Richard Minville handled that procurement for us. He and the staff have reviewed the criteria, and as it stands right now, Vista Maker has the highest score, so that would be the recommendation of the firm to be selected, just in case you were curious about that.
Yeah. No. No, I should take that off.
I do have one more thing too.
I don't think that's funny. Just because you're retired, or retarded. In the first meeting on my birthday, people, how you like that?
Good, we gonna whoop you.
God, no, ain't nobody gonna whip me before.
Don't challenge us. I'll bring Colleen up here.
I do have one more thing.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Just- Back in 2015, the waters of the United States was an issue that we fought at a federal level. There was a moratorium put on that. Earlier this year, there were some court cases that did not go in the favor of coastal communities, and you had navigable waterways with a tributary attached to a tributary attached to a tributary attached to a drainage ditch and everything was deemed jurisdictional wetlands. There have been some changes, but if it's okay, I would like for you to consider authorizing staff to develop a public comment letter in response of the new WOTUS rule. That is something that we have to continue to monitor on behalf of our farming community. Prior converted is an issue, also on behalf of the drainage districts and just small and large landowners. Permitting, dealing more with the Corps of Engineers, dealing more with the EPA on smaller scale issues is not ideal for us. And so I'd like to, if it's okay with you, have authorize the president to sign a public comment letter. There's a 60-day window, but I wanted to get that authorization so we could start developing it now and working with those agencies to make sure that we have a good understanding of what their recommended changes are. And that way we know how far we need to comment one way or the other, how strong we need to comment. So if it's okay with y'all, we would like to add that to the voting meeting for this afternoon. Waters of the United States.
One question. Does that address access?
No, it does not.
Is there any bill or any action to address access? Because we're going to get into more and more of that. It would be good to have some clear direction.
Last legislative session, there was an access bill that was defeated in the House in Louisiana. And so I would imagine that issue would probably come back up again, but there was a bill by Representative Pearson, I believe from Slidell, that did not pass.
Anything else? Everybody okay?
Review the add-ons, allocate additional funding, complete Cameron Fisheries equipment, not to exceed $150,000. Amend employee classification to 0 to 25 years. And authorize the president to sign a public comment letter regarding waters of the U.S. rule change. So, y'all good with those three?
Yeah.
What day is those for?
The 11th and 12th.
Everybody good? Y'all good? Right.
Any,